Hey class, and today I'm going to talk about a big topic around the US, and especially here in Utah with the new bill change. I'm going to be talking about the medical marijuana bill and the way that we as Utahns perceive and look at it. This is something that I've talked about before because it kind of hits home when it comes to the uses and abilities that it provides for people. I'm going to start with the culture we have here in Utah, because that's a big part of how this bill interacts with our day-to-day life and why the bill had certain changes made to it. Here in Utah, we are known as a family state, and most every other state recognizes us as the LDS state, or the polygamy state. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how that really connects into medical marijuana, and I'm ready to explain. Here in Utah, we really do have very strict rules when it comes to adult activities. We are, as a state, are very focused on being family friendly and tend to punish those that go outside of that scope. For instance, our alcohol has something called a tax, or called a sin tax, and this is something that is enforced in Utah and not anywhere else. And it implies that those that are partaking are being sinful. And the way that this leads into marijuana is that, like alcohol, there is a very large stigma that comes along with the uses of marijuana, even when it has medical use. The majority of the people here live in kind of a bubble that makes them feel like they have a safety net when it comes to doctors and what they prescribe and what they say, and we're willing to take anything that they say and just accept it. There's no questions asked. It was said by a doctor, so we'll accept what they have to say, which is unfortunate because here in Utah we've actually been known to be called the pill capital of the US, because we are so willing to accept whatever it is that the doctors have to give us, whether it be Klonopin, Zoloft, Prozac, opioids. We're willing to be zombied out by these drugs, but we're not willing to look at them the same as we would with marijuana, because it hasn't always been used for medicinal purposes. We're so willing to just accept the medications that are given out to us that we don't really think about the consequences that come along with those medications. We just assume that they're safe because it was given to us by a doctor. With medical marijuana, like I mentioned earlier, this is something that wasn't always used for medicinal purposes. People have used it for recreational as well. And that has higher recognition than the medicinal properties of the drug. And even though it's a much safer technique, it still isn't looked at as a safe technique. And I'll include a graph here that'll show the difference in safety features such as overdoses on opioids versus marijuana. There's even a consequence of dietary restrictions when it comes to medications that are prescribed currently versus medical marijuana. And this is something that my husband actually deals with his medication. And it's not Klonopin or Zoloft or anything like that. It's for his anti-rejection medications. And there are certain fruits and certain drinks that he can't have because of the way that they interact with the drug. And that's not something that people tend to think about when it comes to medications. They just want to kind of fix the issue that's going on. And like I said, we just accept what the doctor has to say. Okay, I can't eat grapefruit, so I won't. We don't really look at alternatives so that we can continue to live the way that we were living prior to that medication. My purpose here isn't to explain what medical marijuana is or the properties that it possesses to help us out. My purpose is to explain the stigma that has surrounded medical marijuana, especially here in Utah. The reason I'm bringing it up is because of the bill that was recently passed, I believe in January, and then changed again 2 months later. It's been more widely accepted because of all the other states that have approved the medicinal use. But here in Utah, because of our focus, we don't have the same exceptions that everybody else does. For instance, we go through a whole application process when it comes to medicinal marijuana, and while that's not a bad thing, why is it that we do it for medical marijuana, but we don't do it for opioids? I mean, we're known for being in an opioid-demic, as we call it, but we don't require there to be any applications when it comes to getting that prescribed. We just lower the doses that we allow people to have now. I believe the dose is 7 days now. That's the max that you can get from a doctor. But we're still not worrying about a person going through a whole process for it like we are for medicinal marijuana, because they still aren't looked at as the same, whether or not they're being used for medicinal use or recreational use, because opioids can easily be used for recreational use. And so can any other kind of mind-altering drug, like those that are taken for depression. When it comes to hot topics like this, there really is just a flood of information out there that people are just trying to sift through. And in our culture, it's easy to just find what our community is looking for. And I'm not trying to add to that confusion. I just want to take a step away from all the facts that are being thrown in our faces and look at our surroundings and look at the culture that we've created. We live in a very closed off culture, and not a very tolerant one at that. And we need to take time to understand ourselves and our community. And we want to contribute to our community. I mean, do we want to stick with being called the pill capital? I don't feel like that's a very good stigma to have for ourselves. Do we want to be considered intolerant and judgmental? For me, I just know where I want to be in my community, and I know that I want to contribute to the solution and not contribute to the problem. I want to be able to help those that are stuck in a medical situation and don't want to be stuck with things like an opioid addiction. They want to be able to have something that's going to help them without having the worry of addiction. And I'm sure you want to feel the same way. So just take a step back and look outside of what your surroundings are and try and look at just the facts of things and see if this is something that just makes sense to you. And it doesn't have to be something you agree with, but it's always good to have an outside perspective, and it's always good to take a step back and look at things from a different view so that you can get a better understanding.